You step quietly into a chamber where shadows cling like thick mist. A chill wind seems to stir despite the still air, carrying the faintest echoes of thunder long silenced. Here, whispered in an ancient tongue, is the greeting reserved for those who dare seek what was lost. You who listen, hear the voice of the storm lord Baal, whose name once split the sky and made the earth tremble. You feel the weight of countless forgotten prayers lingering, like ash in the bones of this place. This is no ordinary tale, but a sacred reckoning, an unveiling of a god who once held the storms in his fist, and fell. Before the story unfolds fully, you pause, sensing the gaze of unseen scribes who urge you to join the silent congregation. Like the flicker of candlelight on vellum, your presence matters. Subscribe to these whispers like the channel, and mark your passage by leaving words in the comments, for the gods favor those who remember. This is the beginning of the sacred scroll, the story of Baal, the storm god whose dominion thundered across the Levant, a name now twisted in shadow. Now, let us turn the first page. You find yourself immersed in a realm where time unravels. Like worn parchment, each fold revealing secrets etched in lightning and rain. Baal was once the heartbeat of storms, his roar a celestial drum that summoned the rains to nourish the parched earth. You sense the storm's power as a living pulse, thunderous, raw, and yet intimate, as if Baal's breath still stirs the clouds overhead, waiting to awaken. But this power, once revered, has faded into darkness. The winds carry stories not of glory, but of exile, of divine wrath cast down into demons' guise. In the sacred silence, the mystery of Baal's fate beckons you deeper. Herein lies the first forbidden truth. Baal's worship included rites banned by succeeding faiths, where the air thickened with the scent of burning cedar and the dance of storm priests invoked the horned crown, an emblem of sovereignty and sacrifice. The symbol itself became heresy, its meaning corrupted by time and fear. Scholars still puzzle over why Baal's name, meaning simply Lord, was so fiercely condemned, why the thunder god's worship dissolved into dark myth. The answer remains shrouded, an unresolved theological riddle whispered only by the lost. You are now a keeper of these whispered pages, the fragile threshold between light and shadow. The journey begins here. Now, let us turn the first page. You walk beneath a sky heavy with swelling clouds, the distant rumble of thunder beating like a war drum deep within your chest. This is Baal's realm, where the storm is both creator and destroyer, a divine force whose breath commands the heavens and calls forth life from the thirsty soil. In the ancient Levant, Baal was no mere spirit of weather, but the sovereign of kings and the arbiter of fertility. His voice was the storm's thunder, his eyes the lightning bolts that split the darkened sky. When he roared, crops flourished. When silent, famine gripped the land. You feel the weight of his authority as you step into this tempestuous dominion. Few recall the subtlety of Baal's sovereignty. Unlike distant deities who observed from afar, Baal's power was intimately tied to the rhythms of earth and sky. His storms, the lifeblood of harvest. His fury, the punishment of neglect. His temples were living shrines, open to the sky, where priests danced and sang hymns in a language now nearly lost. The sacred bull of Baal was both a symbol and a living emblem of his power, worshipped through ceremonies that linked the king's rule to the god's stormy might. This bond was not merely political, it was cosmological, a divine covenant etched in thunder and blood. Yet, even at his height, Baal's dominion was fragile, caught between chaos and order. His power over the storm was a double-edged sword. Storms could bring life, but also destruction. The theological paradox of Baal's dominion remains an enigma scholars debate to this day. Was Baal's tempest a manifestation of divine benevolence or a warning of deeper cosmic instability? The storm god's very essence challenges the neat boundaries of ancient theology, making his worship both vital and terrifying, a mystery that still echoes through forgotten texts and forbidden rituals. Among the banned rites was the sacred tempest ritual, a ceremony where storm priests would enact the god's power through wild dances and the ringing of bronze cymbals to summon rain and fertility. This ritual, outlawed by later monotheistic regimes, was said to invoke Baal's spirit so fully that the line between mortal and divine blurred. The horns of the ritual crown were said to capture the storm's lightning, a symbol of divine kingship that was both revered and feared. This symbol later became an icon of heresy, a mark of forbidden allegiance to a god whose storms no longer had a place in the ordered pantheon. You sense the tension in Baal's story, where worship was both a plea for life and a gamble with ruin. The question lingers: what did Baal's worshippers truly understand about the god who ruled the skies? Was his thunder a gift or a curse? This unresolved mystery clings like a shadow across the ruins of his temples, waiting for those who dare to listen. You trace your fingers over a faded carving etched deep into the stone, a pair of curling horns twisting like serpents crowned by lightning. This is the horned crown of Baal, a forbidden sigil that once bound mortal kings to divine tempest. The horns rise not merely as decoration, but as an unholy bridge between heaven and earth, a symbol of authority that whispered of sacrifice and sovereignty. You feel the weight of this emblem, heavy with the memory of rituals lost to the ravages of zealotry and time. In the secret chambers of Baal's temples, priests wore the horned crown during rites known only to the initiated. The ritual was a dark dance of power and blood, each horn carved with runes that captured the essence of the storm, charged by lightning strikes and the chants of storm cultists. The crown was said to grant the wearer Baal's favor, uniting the king's will with the god's wild fury. This ceremony was banned with the rise of monotheistic faiths, deemed heretical and demonic. Yet, fragments of the rite survived, hidden in obscure texts and whispered folklore. One such forbidden belief held that the horned crown was a living vessel, capable of channeling Baal's stormy essence into the wearer's bloodline, ensuring fertility and divine protection. This belief led to the secret practice of consecrating kings through the crown, a heresy condemned by Orthodox priests, but practiced in shadow by those who clung to the old ways. The ritual's symbolic power persists today in the folklore of horned deities, but its true meaning remains obscured, an academic mystery that scholars debate endlessly. Was the crown merely a political tool, or did it truly house a fragment of Baal's tempest? You are drawn into this web of sacred symbolism and forbidden rites, where the boundary between divine possession and mortal power blurs. The horned crown becomes a key, unlocking not only Baal's stormy reign, but also the perilous path of divine kingship entwined with blood and thunder. The theological puzzle deepens. What was the nature of this sacred bond, and how did it unravel into demonized myth? The answer remains hidden beneath layers of erasure and fear. The horned crown's image endures as a heretical symbol, painted as a mark of rebellion and dark allegiance by later religions. Yet, to the faithful few who still honor Baal in secret, it is a beacon of lost power and a reminder of the storm god's vanished glory. You sense the tension between reverence and revulsion, a duality encoded in this ancient emblem. You hear the low murmur of waves crashing against jagged rocks as you enter the realm of myth, where Baal's fury was first unleashed against the untamable sea god, Yam. This eternal conflict, storm against ocean, order against chaos, shaped not only the heavens but the very fabric of ancient cosmology. Baal's victory over Yam was more than a mythic tale. It was the divine assertion of control over the wild, a theological cornerstone that bound the universe in fragile balance. You can almost feel the spray of salt water mixed with the electric charge of lightning as their battle rages beyond time. In the secret scrolls of Ugarit, Baal's triumph is described in vivid poetic fragments, his thunderbolts tearing the sea monster apart, his roar silencing the chaotic waves. Yet this cosmic victory conceals a darker mystery, the extent to which Baal's power was dependent on this adversary. Some ancient scholars suggest that Baal's strength was not absolute, but contingent, a force defined by struggle as much as dominion. The true nature of this duality remains unresolved, a paradox of divine power caught between creation and destruction. The forbidden ritual tied to this myth was the sea binding, a secret rite where worshippers sought to replicate Baal's conquest by casting sacred offerings into the water. binding chaos through symbolic sacrifice. This ceremony was condemned by later monotheistic faiths for invoking forbidden spirits and manipulating primal forces. The ritual symbols, knotted cords and conch shells, still appear in obscure iconography, hinting at hidden worship that defied orthodoxy. You sense that the battle against Yam is more than legend. It is an allegory for spiritual conflict between order and disorder, faith and doubt, divinity and exile. Baal's storm is inseparable from the sea's wrath, each defining the other in a cosmic dance. The theological question lingers. Can a god be truly sovereign if his power depends on the chaos he battles? The mystery remains, an unresolved enigma etched in the sacred texts lost to time. You stand at the edge of the ancient fields, where the earth cracks beneath your feet and the scent of parched soil mingles with the faint promise of rain. Baal's power is revealed here, not only in thunder and storm, but in the fragile balance of fertility and drought that governed life and death. His blessing brought the nourishing rains that swelled the grain and filled the rivers, yet his silence meant famine and despair. You feel the tension in the air, the god's favor as unpredictable as the weather itself, a blessing and curse intertwined. In the agrarian cycles of the Levant, Baal's influence was sacred and terrifying. Each year the land awaited the god's return with rituals designed to coax the storm and awaken the rains. Yet these rites carried a heretical edge, the rainless sacrifice, a forbidden ceremony where the land was deliberately left barren, invoking Baal's wrath as a test of faith and endurance. This paradoxical practice was condemned by emerging monotheistic religions as pagan folly, yet it persisted in secret, a desperate plea for divine mercy. The unresolved theological mystery lies in Baal's dual role as life-giver and destroyer. How could a god embody both hope and despair, blessing and curse? Ancient worshippers understood this contradiction but could not fully explain it, leaving scholars perplexed to this day. Was Baal's capricious favor a reflection of the natural world's chaos or a deeper spiritual trial imposed upon humanity? The answer remains hidden within fragmented hymns and lost prayers, whispered only in the dark. You sense the weight of this paradox as you walk through the ruined terraces where Baal's storms once breathed life. The seasonal curse of fertility and drought is a reminder that divine power is not simple or benevolent, but complex and inscrutable. In Baal's name, life and death danced an eternal, uncertain waltz. You descend into a dimly lit chamber where the faint smell of incense mingles with iron and earth. The walls bear faded depictions of the sacred bull, Baal's fierce emblem, a living conduit of divine vitality. This beast, more than mere symbol, was believed to embody the god's strength and stormy power. The ancient rites demanded blood, life's essence poured forth in ritual sacrifice to renew the land and the heavens. You feel the heavy silence of a forbidden practice, one erased from sanctioned histories yet pulsing still beneath the surface of forgotten faith. The bloodletting of the sacred bull was a rite condemned with zeal by later monotheistic authorities, who saw in it a transgression too terrible to name openly. In secret texts it is whispered that the priestly caste would capture the bull's life force, channeling it through chants and incantations into the fields and storms, ensuring fertility and divine favor. The ritual was surrounded by taboos. No outsider could witness the sacrifice, and the blood was considered a sacred substance, a liquid bridge between mortal and divine realms. To violate these rules was to invite divine wrath and spiritual contamination. An unresolved theological enigma clings to this blood rite. Scholars debate whether the sacred bull's sacrifice was symbolic or literal, and if the latter, how such. Violence could coexist with the god's life-giving role. Was this bloodletting a reenactment of Baal's own sacrifice? A mystical death and rebirth echoing in flesh and bone? The fragments of ancient hymns hint at this possibility but offer no clear answers. The ritual's meaning is a puzzle locked in silence, a secret held tight by the survivors of suppressed cults. You tread carefully through this sacred memory, feeling the tension between reverence and fear, life and death, power and sacrifice. The bull's shadow lingers, an echo of a storm god who demanded the highest price for his blessings. You find yourself in a clearing where the wild winds carry the scent of blood and cedar smoke. Here stands Anat, Baal's sister and fiercest protector, a warrior maiden whose presence is as terrifying as the storm itself. She is the goddess of battle and ecstatic violence, a dark flame that ignites rage and passion alike. Whispers speak of her cult's forbidden rites, frenzied dances and blood offerings that bind her followers in ecstatic worship. You sense the raw power she wields, an extension of Baal's tempestuous spirit yet untamed and deadly. Anat's role in Baal's mythos is complex and shadowed. She is both lover and avenger, her fury unleashed against those who defy her brothers. Reign. Among her cult, the rite of the Crimson Blade was practiced, a forbidden ceremony involving self-inflicted wounds and symbolic bloodletting to invoke her favor and martial strength. This rite was outlawed and branded heresy, yet survived in secret, whispered among the remnants of her worshippers. The sacred blade, stained with ritual blood, was said to carry the storm's wrath, linking Anat's ferocity with Baal's dominion. The theological mystery surrounding Anat and Baal's relationship puzzles scholars. How did this fierce sister goddess influence Baal's own fall from divine grace? Was she a guardian who protected his worship, or a chaotic force that hastened his exile? The fragmented myths offer no clear verdict. What is certain is that Anat's cult was one of the last bastions of Baal's fading storm, her warrior spirit a dark echo of a tempest now lost to time. You feel the charged air of her presence, a reminder that Baal's power was never solitary, but intertwined with forces both protective and destructive. You hold a brittle fragment of papyrus, edges curled and ink faded to a whisper. The remnants of hymns sung in praise of Baal, echoing faintly across millennia. These lost songs, once vibrant with the thunder god's name, survive only in shattered lines and broken stanzas from the ancient city of Ugarit. They tell of Baal's might, his battles, and his storms, yet their full meaning is veiled in cryptic metaphors and lost context, a sacred lament buried beneath the sands of forgotten faith. The hymns reveal a layered theology, rich in symbolism and divine complexity. Among them, one forbidden belief surfaces: the silent song, a secret chant believed to hold the power to summon Baal's storm spirit, but was suppressed and censored by monotheistic scribes. The very utterance of this chant was banned, considered a call to heresy and spiritual peril. Scholars remain divided on the chant's true power and content, an unresolved mystery that fuels debates and speculation. Could speaking these lost words rekindle Baal's dormant tempest? These hymns are more than poetry. They are the keys to understanding Baal's fractured divinity and the culture that once revered him. Yet their fragmented state poses a challenge. What was lost in translation, and what was deliberately erased? The theological silence surrounding these texts is a shadowy space where forbidden knowledge dwells, a spiritual void that beckons the brave to listen carefully. You feel the weight of these whispered verses, carrying the storm god's fading voice through the corridors of time. You tread through the dim corridors of history, where Baal's once hallowed name has been twisted into a curse, a mark of blasphemy whispered in fear. Once spoken with reverence in temple halls and open skies, Baal became synonymous with rebellion and evil under the relentless tide of monotheistic faiths. The divine Thunder Lord was cast down from his celestial throne, defiled into a demon in the eyes of those who sought to erase the old gods. You feel the chill of this spiritual exile, a name transformed by centuries of condemnation. This defilement of Baal's name was not mere slander, but a systematic erasure, accompanied by forbidden acts of ritual desecration. In secret, worshippers of the old god practiced the name reclamation, a banned ritual designed to cleanse Baal's reputation and restore his divine status. The ritual involved the burning of effigies inscribed with his corrupted names and the recitation of secret prayers in ancient tongues. Yet the details remain elusive, lost to time and deliberate destruction, an unresolved theological mystery that haunts scholars and occultists alike. You witness the paradox of Baal's legacy, a god once celebrated as the Lord of Storms and kingship, now demonized and feared. His transformation reveals the brutal power of religious conquest, How divinity can be redefined and erased. The question lingers. What remains of Baal beneath this veil of damnation? Is the true God lost, or merely hidden beneath layers of forgotten worship and whispered curses? The answer remains a shadowed secret, waiting for those who dare to uncover it. You step carefully into a chamber dimmed by centuries, where walls are etched with arcane symbols, horned helmets, lightning forks, and jagged storm motifs that once heralded Baal's presence. These images, though faded and fragmented, pulse with a dark energy, a heretical language defying the strictures of monotheistic regimes. To gaze upon them is to glimpse the hidden cults that refused to relinquish. Baal's storm, preserving his essence in forbidden iconography passed down through secretive hands. Among these symbols, the lightning fork, once a sacred instrument of Baal's power, became a mark of demon worship, its sharp lines transformed into emblems of fear and taboo. The horned helmet, too, endured as a contested sign, sacred to some, cursed to others. These artifacts were outlawed, their display punishable by death, yet their survival in underground sects speaks to a shadow network of devotion and rebellion. Scholars still debate the full meaning and origin of many of these symbols, an unresolved mystery that blurs the line between divine reverence and demonic fear. The heretical belief surrounding this iconography held that possessing or invoking these symbols could grant a fragment of Baal's tempestuous power, a dangerous pact condemned by dominant faiths. Secret ritual use included inscriptions on amulets, tattoos hidden beneath clothing, and cryptic carvings on stones and wood. This clandestine language of the storm god's worshippers became a silent defiance, a spiritual rebellion etched in shadows and lightning. You feel the lingering charge in the air, the tension of a god's legacy transformed into taboo signs, a coded reminder that even in exile, Baal's storm still stirs beneath the surface. You descend into the twilight of ancient myth, where whispers tell of Baal's death beneath the earth and the promise of his return. The sacred texts from Ugarit hint at a cosmic cycle, a storm god felled, buried in shadow, yet destined to rise anew. You feel the solemn weight of this mystery, a divine narrative entwined with death and rebirth, whose full truth remains veiled in lost ritual and fragmentary lore. The death of Baal was not merely an end but a ritual passage. Some say he was swallowed by the underworld, his life force buried with the season's decay. This myth birthed the resurrection rite, a forbidden ceremony said to mirror Baal's own revival through symbolic death and renewal. Practitioners enacted this rite in secret groves, invoking the god's return with chants lost to history. The rite's exact nature remains unresolved, a theological enigma shrouded in silence and fear of divine reprisal. Scholars debate whether Baal's death and resurrection symbolize natural cycles of drought and rain, or reflect deeper spiritual truths about divine exile and redemption. Was Baal's fall a punishment or a cosmic necessity? The answers dissolve like mist, leaving you suspended in a liminal space between faith and forgotten knowledge. The god's promised return lingers as a sacred hope, an echo of storm and renewal, waiting beneath the earth's quiet surface. You follow the shadowed trail where Baal's storm fades into darkness, tracing the god's fall from celestial heights into the infernal courts of demonology. Once a revered lord of thunder, Baal becomes a figure of dread and torment, cast into a hellish realm where divine power is twisted into malevolence. The echoes of his thunder now ring as curses, his stormy majesty replaced by chains and shadows. You feel the chill of exile, the god stripped of glory and condemned to infernal servitude. This descent is mirrored in medieval grimoires and demon catalogues, where Baal is listed among fallen spirits, stripped of divine light and assigned roles of trickery and chaos. The exile binding was a banned ritual invoking Baal's demonic aspect, used by occult practitioners seeking forbidden knowledge and power. This rite, condemned by orthodox religions, attempted to harness Baal's residual might, but at a perilous cost. The full rites are lost, known only through cryptic references, an unresolved arcane secret. Theological questions swarm around this transformation. How did a god of storms become demonized? Was Baal's exile a consequence of shifting religious paradigms or a metaphysical fall? His demonization reveals the fluidity of divine identity and the power of cultural conquest over spiritual narratives. You sense Baal's storm still lingers, in the infernal winds, a restless spirit condemned yet not broken. You enter a dim library, shelves lined with dusty tomes bound in cracked leather and faded parchment. Among these arcane volumes lies Baal's shadowy presence, not as storm god, but as a summoned spirit in grimoires of medieval sorcery. Here, Baal's legacy takes a darker turn, his ancient power repurposed by occultists seeking control over unseen forces. You feel the eerie weight of invocation, the trembling boundary between reverence and command, as Baal's name is whispered in shadowed circles. In texts like the Lesser Key of Solomon, Baal is catalogued as a demon of rank and power, described as a king who commands legions and appears with multiple faces, a distortion of his former divine glory. The binding of Baal ritual was a forbidden ceremony designed to summon and bind this spirit, compelling him to serve the magician's will. These rites, sealed away by orthodox authorities, remain partially understood, their exact procedures and effects an unresolved enigma among scholars of the occult. You grasp the paradox of Baal's survival. Though expelled from ancient worship, his spirit endures through human invocation, a testament to the lasting imprint of divine storm. Yet this endurance is marked by degradation, a god reduced to a summoned demon, his power mediated by fear and control rather than reverence. The theological ambiguity persists. Does Baal's presence in grimoires affirm his eternal power or signify ultimate spiritual defeat? The answer lingers in the dark pages, a whisper waiting for those who dare summon it. You move silently through modern shadows, where ancient storms still stir in secret. Beneath layers of forgotten faith and official condemnation, whispers of Baal's worship persist, clandestine sects that venerate the storm god away from prying eyes. Their rites are shrouded in darkness and taboo, a living thread connecting present defiance with a long-lost divine tempest. You sense the charged air of these hidden gatherings, where the storm god's name is still spoken in reverence and fear. These modern cults often incorporate forbidden symbols, horned crowns, lightning forks, woven into their rituals as a means to reclaim power stripped away by history. Their ceremonies blend old rites with contemporary occultism, practicing blood offerings and ecstatic dances that echo Anat's warrior fury and Baal's stormy dominion. Yet these sects remain secretive, their practices labeled heretical and dangerous by mainstream religions. The theological enigma lies in the persistence of Baal's worship. How and why does this ancient god continue to inspire devotion despite millennia of erasure? You feel the fragile but unyielding pulse of the shadow worship, a testament to the enduring human yearning for the divine tempest. Baal's storm may have been silenced in public, but it rages quietly in the hearts of the few who dare remember. Yoanalar. Stand at the edge of a crumbling altar, the air thick with the residue of ancient storms long past. Baal's thunder no longer shatters the sky, yet the faintest echo lingers, an almost imperceptible whisper caught between memory and oblivion. This forgotten storm is a ghost of divinity, a remnant of power that once shaped kingdoms and skies but now fades into myth and shadow. You feel the hush of spiritual decay, the slow unraveling of a god's legacy in the relentless passage of time. The storm god's final mystery is the nature of this lingering presence, an unresolved question that haunts theologians and historians alike. Is Baal's essence truly extinguished, or does it survive beneath the surface, waiting to surge forth once more? Fragments of forbidden rituals, secret prayers, and hidden symbols hint at a divine force not fully lost but imprisoned, a tempest awaiting release. The heretical belief that Baal's storm can return sustains a fragile hope among those who dare whisper his name. You sense that Baal's story is a mirror to the fate of forgotten gods everywhere, a tale of exaltation, exile, and the slow fading of once mighty storms into silence, yet even silence is not the end. The storm's echo remains, a faint pulse in the dark, a warning and a promise entwined. You close the worn folio gently, the weight of Baal's story settling like dust in your soul. His thunder may have quieted, but the storm's spirit lingers. An ancient power fractured, exiled yet not extinguished. Baal's fall is a testament to the fragile dance between belief and erasure, between gods and the shifting tides of faith. In his exile, he becomes a symbol not just of loss, but of endurance, an eternal tempest hidden beneath the calm. The shadows of forgotten gods stretch long and deep, and Baal's tale is but one whisper among many. His legacy invites you to listen closely, to hear the storms beneath silence, to remember what faith tried to bury. If your candle hasn't gone out yet, you might be ready for the next god.